is on the screen. We help people build, start, and grow businesses, and we give them the resources that they need to help achieve their dreams and do whatever their God-given purpose in life is. And that's what we want to help you with today as well. So let's jump in. So how is business credit built? You know, a lot of people think that simply having an EIN number means they've got business credit.
No, I mean, that's similar to, I always refer back to Social Security numbers. You know, when you get a Social Security number, you don't have credit necessarily, not until you get those accounts set up. And even in the beginning, maybe you need a parent or to co-sign or a student card or a secured card, Debt Discover.
Yeah, I know. That's when we all get it, right? When we're in college.
Right.
I was there. So what you need to understand is that getting an EIN number does not mean that you have credit, and we've encountered that with a lot of folks. In fact, if you try to apply, which most people do at the end, trying to get cash credit cards, you're going to get denied, or they're going to ask for the personal guarantee. So if you do have good personal credit, I mean, it is an option to give a personal guarantee for your business, right? But some people, even though they have good personal credit, doesn't mean that they actually want to use their credit. Sometimes people want to keep it separated. So building business credit is still a good option, viable option for them.
Yeah, and I think it's just most people don't even realize that they can keep it separated if they wish.
Mm-hmm. So if you're building business credit the right way, which is establishing a foundation and building with vendor credits, you know, revolving store credit, you know, fuel credit, high limit cash credit cards. You can't start with the high limit cash credit cards. The very first thing that you have to do is use starter trade lines that report, also known as vendor credit. You want to try to explain what that is?
It's really these beginner relationships. Maybe they're in what's called a net 30. Now there's all different periods of time that net accounts come in, but it's a short-term line of credit. So if I were offering you, say, printer ink, you could buy it from me. And if I extended you a net 30 account, that means that I ship it, I invoice you, and then you have 30 days, the clock starts ticking to pay me back. Usually we want to see that payment be received around day 22. So that's an important thing to understand, that as we move forward this, you just can't be late. It's we talk regularly about, this is a beginning relationship. If you met us on the street and we wanted to borrow money from you, you wouldn't lend to us. But if you knew somebody that already borrowed money from somebody else, and then they've built these relationships of being able to pay back in a timely manner, that's the essence of credit, and that's what you have to do for your business.
I agree, and I think what you're talking about with this vendor credit is this is where you start.
Yeah.
If you don't want to use a personal guarantee, if you don't have good personal credit, if you don't have any collateral or cash flow, if you don't really have any of those things, you're just starting out, then vendor credit is where you start. If you start a business, the right business, and we're not really talking about how to become fundable, because that's a whole nother training, and we do that all the time.
Right.
But we're really just kind of skipping past, okay, we're assuming at this point you're fundable, you're lendable. And so then what do? Well, what most people do is they want to start by applying for those credit cards that they saw, the offers that they get.
Right.
And that's really putting the cart before the horse. You really want to establish and build a good credit score. And once you have the strong profile, I mean, another thing is, who's going to extend to you a line of credit when you have no track record?
It's hard. It's very, I don't know who will.
And so that's what's very important about this vendor credit that's out there, is getting access to a line of credit to buy things that you would already use for your business, and then establish yourself, and then allow your business to really fund itself ultimately. So this is, so we're talking about how to build it without using, your personal credit, but we do have to talk about, what's the opposite of that? What if you did have good personal credit and you do want to give your business a personal guarantee? Well, you could get what we have, or what we call the credit line hybrid. And it's called a hybrid because it's really the best of both worlds. So with a credit card, what's an introductory rate for a credit card?
Well, they range, but
The best one you can get.
Oh, the best one you get is 0%.
0%. And then what is it that we like about credit lines? If you have a line of credit, you have what?
Well, we love the ability to access cash.
Right. Absolutely. So a credit card, you can't get access to the cash without doing a cash advance that comes at a higher interest rate. And with a line of credit, you can't get those 0% introductory offers.
Right.
Well, with the credit line hybrid, you get the best of both worlds. You get a credit card with the ability with checkbook control to be able to pull the cash out if you need to at the introductory interest rate of 0%. So that's what we like. And depending on the personal financials that are required for this, you could get up to $150,000 at 0% interest. And it's a no doc, meaning they're not looking for your tax returns. They're not looking for any cash flow credit. They're not looking for your personal, or they're not looking for collateral, right? So you don't have to provide a lot of documentation for this. We already talked about taking out cash. What's great is this can be used as a startup, right? And when we talk about building trade lines, right, getting payment experiences and having so many accounts, we're going to be telling our clients we want them to get 5, 6 of these different accounts.
Exactly.
But if you went for the credit line hybrid, you could essentially skip this whole process, right? Because you'll get 5 or 6, maybe even as many as 8 different credit cards, maybe at $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 limits, right? You get those reporting, you can skip ahead. You skip over the whole first round of funding, right?
We see folks that reach excellent credit or Dun & Bradstreet paydex scores within 60 days sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so with the credit line hybrid, getting these business credit cards in the business name that only report on the business credit, but did require that you had somebody with a 680 credit score who had 4 inquiries or less on their credit report in the last 6 months, and who has verifiable income and their personal utilization is under 30%, right? You have to have somebody. If that's you, great, you can guarantee your own line. If you don't, then maybe you have a family member, a friend, maybe a future investor in your company. Whatever the arrangement, you can have somebody kind of co-sign for your business and get these credit line hybrid programs. And this is a great way to kickstart your business, right? This is opposite of what we're going to talk about today, right? Because this requires personal credit. We're going to spend the rest of our time talking about, well, how do you do this if you don't have great personal credit? You don't have somebody to give the personal guarantee, or you just don't want to. Maybe you do have the credit, but you don't want it. Well, that's really more of what we're going to talk about today, because we're going to be talking about vendor credit, right? And as you see on your screen, these are the trade lines and creditors that will give you initial credit when you have none, right? These are often vendors that give you supplies for your business, things that, as you can see, shipping boxes, outdoor work gear, ink and toner, office furniture. And they come in the terms such as net 30. So Ray was talking about that earlier. Net 30, we have some net 55, 60, net 90.
Right.
We've seen some that long. That's how many days you have back. I always try to compare. Someone's like, sometimes this is a hard concept for people, but I don't know if you were old enough to remember this, because you're a young guy. But do you remember the days when you could drive up to the gas station and pump your gas first and then go and pay? Yeah.
Yes.
And that's what net 30 is like. You get product now, right? And then you have so much time to pay it back in full, right? You're not a payment plan, not like a revolving account where you have an interest rate and monthly payments, but you have to pay the full balance right up front. And so with these, after you get this vendor credit, you then move on to revolving credit, and then that builds into eventually the high limit cash credit. So if you're approved for $1,000 in vendor credit and you use all of it, you have to pay all of it back within the term, right? So this is a type of credit, but this isn't obviously the credit that we really want. We really want the revolving Visa, MasterCard, American Express lines of credit that help us purchase whatever we want, wherever we want, whenever we want. right?
Very true.
So vendor accounts. So we've talked about net 30 accounts must be paid in 30 days, right? Net 60 must be paid within 60 days, right? So what, if we talk about like, how does that differ from a revolving account?
Well, so a revolving account is a two-way street. The line stays open. And so money can go in, money can come out. So you can make a payment, and then you receive back available credit, and it goes back and forth. Now, a net 30 account is very similar in the fact that the entire balance is due. Well, it's similar in the fact that you can use it over and over again, but the only difference between a revolving and a net 30 is the entire balance is due on the net 30. On a net 60, it's not a partial payment like you can have in a revolving, which we see a lot on credit cards. You could have $1,000 balance, but your minimum payment may only be $40. On a net 30, if you rack up $1,000, $1,000 is due in 30 days.
Right. Now that what's very important is for the revolving account where you only had to pay $40, that shows up if it reports to the right people, like say Dun & Bradstreet, Experian, or Equifax, the business credit reporting agencies. That shows up as a payment experience. It's part of your transactional history. So there is no difference between the way that would look and the way it would look if you paid off a net 30.
Very true. Yes.
So these accounts are much easier to get for a business just starting out than an actual revolving line of credit.
Oh yeah, another huge benefit is usually net 30, net 60 accounts come at no interest. And usually if you pay them a little bit early, they actually will give you some type of discount if, say, you were to pay within the first 10 days. But it just depends on the count. And that's the tricky part, is every business is different.
Right, exactly. So it's important to get these to report. I mean, if anything, that's really the hardest thing, is which accounts report. I mean, you could literally pull your hair out trying to find the ones that report. And when do they report? I mean, a lot of people know several accounts that actually report. Like, we're going to talk about accounts today that some people have heard of and they know, but there's little nuances and people are frustrated because they don't understand why they don't report and how they report. And so, I mean, if we kind of take a time out here on the, this is something that's foreign to most people, because with your personal credit, you go and use your credit card anywhere, there's a record, right?
Right.
And if you don't pay that, there's a record of you not paying, right? And if you pay it, there's a record of you paying it. There's laws, the Fair Credit Reporting Act, right? There's laws that require everything to be handled a certain way. There is no such law on the business side. There's no law regulating or mandating when and how the business credit should be reported. It's the wild, wild west.
It absolutely is.
And so, but another thing to consider is for the vendors, it costs them money to report. Now, let me say that again. It costs them money to report positive payment history. So if they want to tell Dun & Bradstreet, or they want to tell Business Experian, or they want to tell Equifax Small Business that you made a payment on time, those bureaus are going to charge them money to tell them that you did that. And so a vendor has to decide for themselves, is it cost effective for me to charge you money for a product and then go and tell the credit reporting bureaus? And 97% of vendors say, no, it's not cost effective for them, so they don't report. And then there's people that do report for a while, and then they stop reporting for a while, and then they report again, on again, off again, based off, we'll probably, because when there's economic fluctuations, we see a lot of shifting in that. One to mention specifically, just so you know, Wells Fargo, we used to tell people to go get secured credit cards with Wells Fargo because they reported to the business credit bureaus.
Right.
Well, as of January of this year, they stopped doing that because it wasn't, but I mean, they've done that, they've gone on again, off again. And so they might pick that up again later this year or next year. But and so when you get an account and you know that it's reporting, that's great. You can have a legitimate account that was reporting and then they stop reporting. How do you know? How do you keep track of all that? That's what's really difficult. And that's why people get so frustrated when it comes to building business credit the right way, because like we said, it's the wild, wild west. There's no law mandating that they report, and that they don't even have to report on time. You can make a purchase today. They could report it 90 days from now.
Yes.
Right?
Which happens too, especially in the beginner vendor accounts. They're notorious for, especially the very first few, may not show up for 90 days. But then that's the difficult part. If you wait around for 3 months and maybe you didn't make a big enough purchase for it to even report.
Right.
Ooh, that's
how do you know?
frustration.
Right? And if you call them up, do they sit there and explain to you, here are our underwriting guidelines. This is what you have to do for us to report. Do they explain that to you? When
Not from any experience I've ever had.
So the great thing about vendor credit, though, is if you do it right, you don't need a personal guarantee. You don't need to supply business finances. Now, if you do it wrong, right, if you're not set up, and we're not really going into that today, but if you really haven't set up the legitimacy and the fundability of your business as a critical starting step to starting your business, if you haven't worked with us to help you with that, or watch some of our other videos where we cover that in great detail, then this isn't going to be an easy process. But if you have taken the time to build your business the right way, then this is actually a very seamless process. It's like automatic approvals. So let's talk about, when it comes to your social security number, no matter whatever application for any line of credit or any account you're going to open, they're always going to ask, right?
For your social
If they have an
yes.
opportunity to put you personally on the hook, they're always going to. Right?
Absolutely.
But you see, what we want you to know that if the credit is ultimately issued by the bank, they're going to ask for that because the federal laws require a social security number on the application, and that's to prevent fraud. But for starter vendors, so long as it's not through a bank, you can leave your social security number off of the application. We also recommend that you don't put any other number in there, right? Because that's a class 6 felony, right?
Yeah, don't do that. Even 000s, if you can't actually do it, then there's a process. Some applications might need to be faxed in.
Right, absolutely. So what are the benefits? Well, it's important in the business credit building step process, because who's going to give you initial trade accounts that will report to the business credit bureaus? Vendor credit is easier to get than store or fleet credit because it doesn't require that you provide any, you don't have to have a certain time in business. Like some people, to get a line of credit with them, they want to see that you've been in business for 3 to 5 years, have a certain number of employees, make a certain amount of money, verifiable by text. You don't need any of that to get vendor credit. Right. And so you can build up a lot of vendor credit, right? If you find the right ones that report, you can get a lot of payment experiences on your history in a very short period of time.
It's very important.
And one of the things is we've been working, and our team has been working with these folks for years. And this is a proven process that works. We know that vendor credit is the right place to start. Because once you lay the foundation, you don't have to keep laying it over and over again. It then allows you to have such a great track record of legitimacy that you've had all these different accounts and that you've paid them all on time, that other credit accounts, higher revolving accounts, will now be ready to give you a shot because they're looking like, wow, look at this credit history, this payment history. This is what works for folks. So you need to have credit to get more credit. I mean, that's the name of the game. And so the more vendor credit you build up, the more revolving credit you'll be able to get. The more revolving credit you can get, the more fuel credit, the more high limit credit cards you can get. So you've got to get more credit to get more credit. Building starter vendors and trade lines leads to the big payoff, because these accounts are fairly easy to get if you understand and know which ones will report, and you know the underwriting guidelines. If you set up your business the right way, it's an automatic approval to get these accounts. You simply make a product purchase, you get invoice, you make the payment. That making of the payment is what will establish your business credit report. It will give you the Paydex score, right? Will give you your IntelliScore, whichever agent reporting bureau we're talking about. And then this is what will lead to allowing you to have a credit-worthy profile. So if you on the personal side had an 800 or an 850 credit score, what would your confidence level be going into the bank and asking for another line of credit or a loan?
It should be pretty high.
Right. Well, what we're doing here is we are doing the business credit equivalent of trying to help you get that 800 credit score.
Yeah, the confidence is definitely going to be high.
So Ray, why don't you talk about the 3 companies that we're going to talk about today that report to the business credit bureaus, and go over the underwriting guidelines for all 3.
We can definitely do that. And well, pull it up here. Do we have the underwriting guidelines on here?
Yeah, it'll come up. I've got it all on.
Well, I was grabbing the book because if you folks don't even know, we're actually running a special on this right now on Amazon. $97 right now. There's a lot of folks out there who pay $250 for this book. 30 underwriting guidelines in this book right here. So go to Amazon because we're running that special right now. The Business Credit Playbook, Entrepreneur's Playbook for Building Business Credit. So, all right, so we're going to give away a couple of underwriting guidelines. Uline, this is a fantastic company that you could start with. It offers packaging, handling materials, also janitorial, industrial supplies. They report to Dun & Bradstreet and Experience, so you must have a DUNS number and be set up with Dun & Bradstreet. Also have the EIN number before starting applying. You will need to make an order. Now, we're talking a single invoice order of $50 or more before they'll report it. And they can take typically anywhere from 30 to 90 days, depending on the time of year, for that to show up on your business credit profile. First few orders might need to be prepaid initially so you can get approved for the net 30 terms. Now this really comes down.
Can I talk about that just a minute? Like, why would that happen? Because they weren't set up properly.
Right.
A business name, or they don't have the right license, or there's something wrong in the business setup.
The foundational setup of your business, there's something that is showing a lack of credibility. So there's something that's setting off a red flag that says you're dipping your toes and you're not fully engaged. And when that takes place, the system says, okay, this is a little bit riskier situation. We're not sure if this business is serious about what they're doing. And even though you may be fully serious, you're like, I'm building this business. It depends on how you are actually speaking to the computer system. So, I mean, that's really, I mean, one thing is to say I'm all engaged, but the next is how do you actually show that you're serious? So what you're going to need to qualify is you're going to need to have an entity, some type of legal structure entity that is registered and in good standing with the Secretary of State, because they're going to check that. EIN number with the IRS, and all the information matches. So the address with the IRS, making sure that that's current and updated. Business address matches everywhere. That's the number with that's the address with the Secretary of State, the IRS, and any documentation that you have that's public information. Also the DUNS number, and the same thing, that address is what's on file with Dun & Bradstreet, that your name is spelled correctly, business license if you need it, business bank account, and the application may be approved for net 30 at the time of the order. Upon final review, their credit department may change to a few prepaid orders before granting net 30. And like we're saying, Uline is one of the easiest that I have experienced in order to get it. And there's only been a few times that I've seen folks have a little bit of struggles, but they are, I mean, there's a lot of mess ups in that setup for Uline to say, no, they're pretty lenient. So.
Well, I think the number one thing that I've seen is a lot of people don't make the $50 minimum purchase. They've made like a $30 or $40 purchase, and then they thought that would report, and it didn't.
Or 2 items that equal 40, but then they split into different invoices because they're coming from different warehouses. That also won't get reported. So per invoice needs to be $50 or more. And that's not including shipping either. So
Right.
that's product.
Right. And some people include the shipping. Yeah,
Right.
I ordered, this $40, but after shipping it went over 50.
Right.
So you gotta be very, very
So
careful.
how you actually apply to them, go to uline.com, find what you're looking for, find what you can use, add it to your shopping cart, go to the checkout, and then there's a little box there that you can select to open an account, and then you can select to be invoiced. Pretty easy process.
Perfect.
So Quill, that's another great company. This has a lot of office materials, and they have some really, really good deals, good prices, coffee makers, pens, pencils, paper pads. I mean, everything that you could possibly need. Ink toner.
Mhm.
I mean, ink alone, one pack of ink is going to get you a pretty substantial bill there.
Well, I think, our ink is always over $50.
Easy, yes. And they do report to Dun & Bradstreet. If they don't give you a net 30 account, they will ask that you do prepay orders of $100. Now, typically, there is usually like a 90-day seasoning period where they'll extend you a net 30 account, but sometimes it takes up to 90 days.
Well, this is something that actually Quill started in January of this year, was people who don't have the right business setup. Because, a lot of people know, Uline and Quill do that. And so a lot of people just keep, throwing in accounts. But when they're not established and they're not set up correctly, and it makes them think, well, you didn't have your, you're not filed with the Secretary of State, or you're applying as a sole proprietorship, or different things like that. If they have any questions, they're now making you make two purchases of $100 in 2 separate months consecutively, right?
Yeah.
Before they will give you the net 30 account.
Yeah.
Then the net 30 account is
maybe
there.
sometimes even 3 months in a row they want you to get on there.
Right. So, but I mean, those 2 payments, though, a lot of people, because I'm just saying, from the folks I've been speaking to, where that happened to, those first $200 payments, that's not reported.
Right. It's very true.
It's very important.
Which is something that you're going to end up paying for this one way or another. And so this could be something like your email address, and you're saying, well, I don't want to spend $5 a month for my email address, and I don't want to spend $5 or $10 or even $20 a month for a good phone number.
A business phone number.
But then that's going to transfer to each account is going to start putting in these regulations. Now, because of the state of what's happening in the economy.
And fraud, so much fraud.
And fraud. This is a big issue. And as business credit becomes better well known to folks, because it wasn't well known. And then as we start to talk more about how to get a line at Quill is going to use that to their advantage. As they have an influx of new accounts, they have to offset the risk by increasing their the amount of payments so they can reduce their risk. It's just standard. I mean, if you were Quill, you'd do the exact same thing. And so, but once you do have a net 30 account, it does only require a $50 purchase.
You got to be careful of that invoice separating. Though.
Right. Invoice separation is because you got to think about it from their perspective. If they're able to not report, that saves them time, energy, and money. They don't. That's why it's so hard for businesses to report. And if they don't have to report, they don't want to.
And they're not paid shipping either.
Right. They want to make sure that it is beneficial for them. Hey, if you're going to really be a customer of us, then we will report. So we got to make sure that we satisfy their need, so they satisfy ours. Now, to qualify for Quill, what you're going to need is entity in good standing with Secretary of State, the EIN number with IRS, business address that matches everywhere, the DUNS number, business license, business bank account as well. And then, like we said, new businesses or businesses with no credit history may need to prepay until the net 30 is approved. You can go ahead and do this and visit them on quill.com. Sometimes you just need to get on the phone with their credit department to work those little kinks out. Another great one that we got for you today is Grainger Industrial Supply. They have hardware, electrical tools, pneumatics, power tools, pumps, more. I know some of our clients have bought electrical pressure washers or small power tools, things like that, HVAC.
We have a lot of clients that are either real estate investors, truck drivers. You can find something for your business at Grainger.
Yeah, a lot of the air tools for truck drivers. That's always a great thing. Some of the even just the lines, some of the air lines that you can use on your rig, that is something that you can purchase from there. But then just anybody that's also a homeowner, if you're a homeowner or you own rentals, there's something that you could use from there. Maybe you buy it off your business. So what do you need? They also have the stuff like we were saying for rigs or fleet maintenance for your trucks. They do report to Dun & Bradstreet. Orders must be $50 or more to be reporting, and the terms are net 30. You can go to Grainger.com, and then to apply, you will need your entity to be in good standing, IRS number or the EIN with IRS, business address, Dunn's number, business license, business bank account.
Can I say something about the business license? Because this is something that's new, that's shifting. So all of them you have mentioned, business license, if applicable. Now your business might not require a business license, right? But there are ways where you can still pay for a business license in a county or a city, just so that you have saying that, hey, I am a business. I want that acknowledgement that I'm a legitimate business. A lot of these places, Uline, Quill, and Grainger, if you go to them with a business license, the great thing about the business license is that is automatic legitimacy. That means you get the max that they're willing to offer, $2,500 max in your net 30 account, just because you had a business license. So if you have a required one, yes, provide it. But if you don't, I mean, what does a business license cost? I mean, they're not that much.
So, I mean, I've seen some as cheap as $15 a year. I mean, it could be a couple hundred, but it's one of those benefits. You weigh the pros and cons and the cost.
But again, by simply just getting a business license and getting a starter vendor account at $2,500, that means when you get to the revolving line, they're now going to offer you more than that. They're going to offer you $3,000, $4,000.
Great.
And then when you get to the fuel line, they're going to offer you $6,000 or $8,000, and then the high limit credit cards are going to come in at $10,000 or $12,000.
That's a really good point.
As opposed to if you just started with a small little $500 account and then it grows to $1,000, $2,000, right? This just the simple business license is a little trick of the trade, so to speak, on how to accelerate your growth in business credit.
Absolutely, and it just depends too on what time of year, where who you're even talking to. They may ask for additional documents if they see some uncertainty in your profile, if you don't have any previous accounts established, you don't have a PAYDEX score of any type at this point, then they're going to want to, it just depends. They may require other documents. Sometimes they just want to see that.
What's the easiest way for people to avoid all of that extra documentation stuff?
Make sure that everything lines up in the foundational steps.
I was going to say work with us, but I agree with that too.
Yes. Well, that's what our job is. Our job is to make sure that you are credible and lendable.
Yes. So to recap, we do live in economic uncertain times, and building business credit is more important than ever. Business credit is independent of the economy, though, which is great, because when lenders start pulling back on personal credit, the business credit still stays there, because it is the business and business credit that fuels the whole economy.
That's very true, because right now we're seeing that they're starting to drop credit limits on the personal side. So if you've had some credit cards that have been sitting out there you haven't been using, banks are starting to free up that capital to extend to who? Businesses. They're literally reducing their balance sheets on the personal liability sides, because they know that there's, currently over 30 million people collecting unemployment. That doesn't even include how many people are actually even unemployed. But with that happening, they're pumping all the money into businesses, because they know the businesses are going to need the money to refuel the economy. That's why we see it's like they're almost at $1 trillion they've been pumping into businesses.
Absolutely.
In the last 2 weeks.
Right. I mean, because if the small businesses go, I mean, that's 70% of the economy.
Right.
The whole economy goes.
Right.
So they're going to do everything they can to prop that up. Now, in our system, when you utilize the Wise Guys and Ties system, we have over 15 different vendors, right? These are the vendors that will extend to you a minimum of $500, right? And a starter vendor account that you can use to build and grow your credit. But you don't need cash flow. You don't need collateral. You don't even need personal credit to get these accounts. And these accounts report to the business credit reporting. We've done the work. Imagine the time it would take to find all the vendors that will report. And when you do find them, we have the expertise and the experience that has shown this is what it takes to actually get them report. Because today, hopefully you learned some stuff about Uline and Quill that you didn't know before, because there's so many things out there that people have heard of them. Oh yeah, they report. But if you don't know the little nuances, then you can't get that report. People hire us and utilize our system because we have the largest selection of starter vendor credit, store credit, fuel credit, and high limit credit anywhere. We have over 100 different credit issuers and all the underwriting guidelines. And we take you through this whole process step by step, right? So as we recap all of this, I mean, we want you ultimately to qualify for as much credit as you can get. And our business finance suite is the way to help get that done. Another thing that people don't always know is, well, I don't have time. You know, I do want to do that hybrid program you were talking about. I want to get funding today, right? Well, we have that. That's a whole nother side, but we have where, I mean, you can get credit based off of your cash flow. If you do have cash flow, if your business has cash flow right now, there's funding available. If you do have collateral, if you do have personal credit, or if you already have some existing business credit, or you want to give a personal guarantee, there is funding available right now. So, you know, we don't charge you any fees, right? There's nothing that we charge. We basically refer you to a broker that we work with. And we are going to also do what's called a business blueprint assessment, where we try to map out the next 5 years of where you're at now and how do we get you to a $2 million, $10 million, $20 million SBA loan, right? So that you can take your business to whatever heights that you plan to go. But having one-stop shop to find all of the different, I mean, we have 27 different ways that people can get funded, right?
Yes.
Utilizing this program. So, folks, there's so much that you can do. Our phone number, of course, has been on the bottom of the screen. It's now right there front and center. Look, we want you to work with us. We want to help you achieve your goals, your God-given purpose, whatever that is. Give us a call. Learn more how you can build, start, and grow your business and get access to all of these funding options, the credit card hybrid program, how to build your credit, starting with vendor credit. Help utilize us and yoke our strength to help you achieve your dreams, whatever you were put here to do. Because what we find is that most people, there's no shortage of dreams. There's just people who lack the know-how, they lack the knowledge, they lack the ability to do whatever it takes to make those dreams come true. And that's where we come in. We provide you the tools and resources necessary to make all of that happen for you. So give us a call, 888-524-9273, or look us up online and contact us, and we look forward to working with you. On behalf of myself, Joseph Smith, and Ray Fleming,